Today we're going to make bread. Step by step, I want to take you through how to make bread. I want everybody in the entire world to know how to make bread because it is so easy and it is so good, and it is the one recipe that most of you have wanted to know how to make. It seems like everybody has their favorite recipe in the cookbook, but bread is the one that everybody seems to be asking about, and it is the staple for our cinnamon rolls, for our breadsticks, for scones. So we're gonna just make the regular bread, and we'll get to the dough, and when you get to that part, then you can branch off into the other things that you make. But for today, we're making bread. So I want to show you my recipe that I had from when I was a kid. That is our recipe for making bread. My mom made bread the entire time we were kids. She didn't have a recipe, she just made the bread. Well, when I went away to college, she took me to my apartment that we had rented, and before she left me, she says, let's run into town. I'm gonna buy you a few things for your apartment. So we went in and she bought me a big mixing bowl and a wooden spoon and measuring cups and a few things to go. And then we went back to the apartment, and my mom, before she left, made a batch of bread with me. And that's the first time that I had actually made bread. Mom had always made it. I didn't make bread. My girls learned how to make bread at home, but I didn't. And so my first batch of bread was made at college, and my mom would take a clump of shortening and drop it in a pan, and then she would melt that down and let it cool. Well, after I had been married quite a while, like 10 years maybe, I thought, I do not like melting the shortening down. That was the worst part of making the bread. I didn't like melting it down. I didn't like the smell. I didn't like having to watch it so close because of a burn and fire. And so I started using oil out of the, like a vegetable oil, and I just really liked it. And my mom and my sister, they were just going crazy, like, oh, Jennifer, this bread is so good. And I told them what I'd done. And after that, my sister started using oil too, because we couldn't tell that it was really any different. In fact, I think it was better. The first thing I do is get my yeast started. I use 2 tablespoons of yeast, and I like to add about a tablespoon of sugar and mix that together, and then add a cup of warm water. And I let that rise until it's about double. So you want to make sure that the water that you add to your yeast is not too hot and not too cold, because you don't want to kill the yeast, and you don't want to, if it's too cold, it won't rise very fast either. So I just leave that sitting on the cabinet until it doubles in size, and it usually takes about as long to double as it takes for me to get my flour and sugar and salt put together in the other big bowl. So I don't have a pantry upstairs or a very large pantry, and I've always just kept a big bucket of flour and a bucket of sugar in the back closet. I add 10 cups of flour, or maybe just a little bit shy of 10 cups. And then I add a half a cup of sugar, about a half a cup. So you don't want to forget the salt, about a tablespoon of salt, and then be sure and mix that in real good. After I put the yeast mixture in the flour, I add 3 cups of water. and a half a cup of oil. I don't think it really matters what type of oil you add. You can add canola oil or vegetable oil. Now you can see that's pretty shaggy. Nothing special, just kind of shaggy, and I just let that sit for a few minutes and give it a chance for the gluten to kind of, well, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it just does something if you let it sit for about 10 minutes. So I've let the dough sit for about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes, and I find that the counter height is too high for me to knead. It's not comfortable, and so I always do it on the floor. We'll put it on the carpet part of the floor, or when I lived in my other homes I would have a rug. And I do that because it's easy for me to turn my bowl around when I'm working with it. You see how this ball, how easy it is to spin the bowl around when I'm doing this? It's just so much easier than standing up to the counter and trying to push down on it and mix it. I just like to get right down on the floor and knead it. And there you go. You see what that kind of feels like? I wished you could feel it. That's what it looks like. It's not too sticky. It's not dry. The next thing I'll do is cover it with a cotton towel. Now, depending on how warm the day is, determines where I let this dough rise. Let's say it'll probably take about an hour for this to rise in this nice warm house. So I'll just leave it right here on the cabinet and we'll check back in an hour and see. My bread dough has been rising for just about an hour and it looks pretty good. Sometimes it rises a little bit more, or I could wait a little bit longer, but I'm actually in a little bit of a hurry right now. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I just wanted to show you the texture. Since you aren't here to feel the texture of the dough, I'm hoping that you get a sense of what the texture is like. I just love using these bread tins. They just make me laugh. They're kind of ugly, but they're the ones that my mom bought me when I was going off to college. So I put them in 4 equal loaves. I butter the top of them, and then I cover them and let them rise until they are just above the tins. If I was making rolls, I would sprinkle a little bit of salt on them, but maybe one of these days I'll do a video where I get to this point and instead of making bread, we'll make cinnamon rolls, or we'll make dinner rolls, and I'll show you what I do with those. But for this, I don't put salt on the top of the bread. I just butter it really good and then put the towel over it and let it raise. So I've cut the dough into 4 equal parts for 4 tins. What size are these tins? My tins are, it doesn't matter if they're bigger, if they're smaller, if they're bigger tins than these, just about 9 by 5s. If I wanted to let my dough rise a second time, it would have been perfectly fine. I would have just punched it down, and instead of cutting it into 4 quarters, I would have just let it risen again. Risen. I'd have just let it rise again and made it into whatever I wanted when I was ready. So it really is very forgiving. It doesn't matter if you let it rise once, you let it rise twice. I think it might be a little lighter if it rises twice, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if it looks perfect either, because it's still really good. And sometimes mine aren't really pretty. Sometimes mine are beautiful. I've made them when I've just thought, wow. And then other times I've thought, well, what the heck? What did I do wrong? How come it's not looking right? But it doesn't matter.
Okay, well, this is all my fault. Jennifer had to be somewhere this afternoon, and so she got her bread all ready to go. And she left a nice little note for me.
Oh, those rings are there because I'm doing dough, not because I'm giving them back to you.
Yeah. But anyway, she left me a note for when I got home from work to heat the oven up, check the bread, put it in the oven, and finish filming what she had started. Well, I saw that the car was gone. I knew Jennifer wasn't home, so I just went and I saw that the kitchen was all set up, so I thought, no, I'm not going to touch anything. I'm not going to move the camera. I'm not going to mess anything up. I'm sure she'll be home momentarily to finish up what she had started. It looked like she was making bread. Well, I knew she was making bread, but she was doing something with the cookbook. Anyway, I went in, laid down on the couch, waiting for her to come home, and of course, I fell asleep. And then I woke up to a text from Jennifer a couple of hours later saying, "Did you finish the bread?" I thought, no, I didn't finish the bread. I didn't even know I was supposed to do it. She says, "Well, didn't you see my note?" We were sending texts back and forth. So I had to send her a picture of the bread. It raised too high, so.
Well, it raised and then it fell, and I thought, that's not going to look good in my video about this. But when I wrote him, I says, "Hi Chad, sorry I missed you. I had to run to the church. When the dough has raised above the tin, will you put it in the oven for me for about 20 minutes? I says, "Don't forget to film and try not to show my dirty oven."
Well, at least I didn't show the dirty oven. And I'm going to eat every bit of it and be happy about it.
We didn't put them in the oven, and so they continued rising, and then they fell. And so I reshaped them, put them back in the tins, and let them rise, and now we're going to put them in the oven. And so I'm kind of glad that it turned out this way, because then I can show you, I started this process hours ago, could have been done hours ago, and here it is getting dark outside. And it just goes to show you, these might not be the perfect bread loaves today, but they're still going to be delicious. So
double checking your
yeah, I'm double checking my recipe. So for about 25 minutes, and we'll have us a little bite to eat before we go to bed. And that looks pretty nice.
And that's what we're going to top it off with.
Yep.
Butter, peanut butter, and some honey and peaches.
Just a minute. Just give it a minute and we'll eat. We'll invite you to dinner, okay?
Thanks, Jennifer.
Do you like the heel?
I like the heel. We fight over having who gets the heel or not.
Lots of suppers.
Yep. In fact, this here reminds me of that story that Elder Holland told. A leader in our church was telling a story in conference in one of our church meetings.
Yeah.
You remember that one?
Okay. Yeah, I think I've told it before. So this young couple is married, and the wife, she does her very best that she could at making her bread that day. And the husband and her, they sit down to eat their meal, and the husband says, "Well, you don't make bread like my mom." And the wife just quickly came back and said, "Well, you don't make dough like my dad."
No, that's a good lesson there.
Good lesson. So you just do the best you can, but
and it's not always going to be the best, because there's always somebody better than you, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be someone that you do better than them, and so just be happy with your skills and work on improving them.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys, I want you to make bread. I want you to make it, and it doesn't matter if the loaf isn't perfect. It just doesn't matter. Just make it.
Yep. And over time you'll get better. but there'll be days that you forget to punch it down and put it in the oven when you're supposed to. But you make do.
There's just certain things you just want to know how to do.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and head on over to my Instagram and let's talk there.
I'm not going to talk anymore.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.